What could help NIO sell better and more overseas, like in Europe? Welcome everybody, and I'm pleased you're tuning in again. These are some Friday thoughts, almost weekend thoughts now, for how NIO could maybe improve its overseas operations. You heard me talking, well, if you watched the video, not that many people have clicked the video, but earlier this week, you can go back, I talked about this that happened in China, which is an article that I posted in my Patreon community, that the NIO Battery Asset Management Company has raised local funds at very low rates, almost 2% from local banks, and that showed the interest by local investors to fund the operations of the NIO Battery Asset Management Company and the assets in there. And by the way, the rates are so low because they are taking those assets within the battery as kind of a collateral, and that's coming on top that on the fact that in China we now have very preferential terms with liquidity. That China is thinking about stimulus. By the way, we've got news that there will be in the first weeks of November a new meeting where we, in my opinion, will hear for the first time actual numbers on the stimulus. So that will be close to the US elections and so on. So maybe not a coincidence, but in my opinion, this will give like more tangibles for the investors. But now back to this video. What I think about here with this analogy of this example here, that NIO raises those funds locally, or the battery asset management raises these funds locally for battery purchases at very preferential rates. This kind of got me thinking, NIO struggled in Europe because of, in my opinion, mainly two reasons. First of all, they did not bring the service experience up to the standards that they have in China. So that's an organizational and an operational problem. So maybe hired the wrong people in the beginning, or people weren't briefed enough, or the operational excellence has been missing in this regard. And second, because they did not have enough battery swap stations already in place when they launched. So basically, without those two things, these are what makes NIO stand out in a Chinese market, in a fierce competition. And if you're trying to sell cars without your unique selling proposition, it's going to get really hard, right? But there's a third reason, which might be the case. We have heard some people complain that NIO cars are too expensive in Europe. And that might have to do with this example now, where I try to close the loop here in my thinking and this little brainstorming exercise here, which is about leasing rates. And the established legacy automakers and competitors like BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes, they all have their own banks in Europe, but maybe also globally, and they are having tremendous deals for consumers in terms of leasing rates and so on. And by the way, these are also big profit centers which are making a bulk of the profits for the automakers. So producing a car is just a side business sometimes. But anyways, it's tough for NIO as a newcomer to compete in this market. And if you want to partner with local banks, there might be an issue that, nobody knows you. You have a very complicated business model with the ownership divided between the battery and the car and such. And so this is a challenge for NIO, where I think maybe they could, leverage some of these local players, which they've got here, in such financing operations locally in China, and with them, stretch out their arms into overseas operations and provide Chinese money, local banks' money into overseas operations. There might be some difficulties with that. I'm not sure how well all of that is possible because of the conversion issues around the RMB and such, but technically there might be an opportunity here where the state policy sometimes is like geared towards making Chinese companies go overseas, and so those largely state-owned banks should be also kind of helping with such kind of operations overseas. And I'm not sure why NIO didn't tap in something like that so far, and I think that's an opportunity maybe to consider for a next attempt for getting into Europe and offering better deals. I'm not sure how likely or realistic that is. So that's why I'm putting this out here as an idea. Maybe some of you have some thoughts on that, but definitely, just an analogy of what works in China, why not bring that overseas? Because it's clearly been a difficulty for NIO to deal with regarding offering competitive rates in the local markets here in Europe. So one thing to look out for, I think there might be an opportunity here, and I think actually it would make sense from many levels. However, we'll need to see whether or not they pursue this strategy, and how realistic is it that these actors will help on that. But certainly something that could work, and in the next attempt maybe make NIO more successful in Europe, in my opinion. So thanks for watching. See you in the next videos.